I still shudder every time I think about that terrifying night drive. It was a few years ago, but the memory is as vivid as if it happened yesterday. I was alone, driving down a desolate stretch of highway in the dead of night. The road was enveloped in an inky blackness with only my car's headlights to pierce the darkness. Little did I know that this journey would turn into a nightmare. The road was deserted, and the only sound was the eerie hum of my engine. The darkness seemed to close in around me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. My grip on the steering wheel tightened as I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. Miles seemed to stretch into infinity as I continued down the seemingly endless highway. The only solace was the soft glow of the dashboard lights, casting an eerie and surreal atmosphere inside the car. I was desperately searching for any sign of civilization when my headlights caught something in the distance. Approaching slowly, I realized it was a hitchhiker standing by the side of the road. A woman, her disheveled hair covering most of her face. I felt a pang of guilt for not stopping to help her, but I had heard too many horror stories about picking up strangers in the middle of the night. Besides, something about her seemed off, and a chill ran down my spine. As I passed her, I stole a glance in the rearview mirror and gasped. She was gone, as if she had vanished into thin air. Panic washed over me, and I pressed my foot on the gas pedal, trying to put as much distance between me and that mysterious woman as possible. I tried to shake off the feeling of dread, but it clung to me like a shadow. That's when I noticed the flickering headlights in my rearview mirror. A car was following me, and the way it was swerving made it clear the driver was inebriated. I sped up, hoping to lose them, but they kept getting closer. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized I was being pursued by a drunk driver on this desolate road. Fear twisted my gut, and I desperately searched for an escape route. There was a narrow dirt road to the right, partially obscured by overgrown bushes. Without thinking, I veered onto it, praying that it would lead me to safety. The dirt road was treacherous, filled with potholes and surrounded by dense trees that seemed to reach out for me. I could hear the distant roar of the car behind me, but I couldn't see it anymore. Panic set in as I realized I was lost in the wilderness, with no cell phone signal and no idea where I was. My headlights flickered, and then, in the blink of an eye, they went out completely. I was plunged into darkness, and my heart raced even faster. I fumbled for my phone and turned on the flashlight, but the beam only revealed more trees and the ominous silence of the night. Suddenly, I heard a voice. It was soft, almost a whisper, coming from the darkness around me. "Why did you run?" it asked. I froze, unable to determine where it was coming from. The voice grew louder, closer, and then I saw her. The hitchhiker. She was standing in front of my car, her face still hidden by her hair. I stammered, "Who are you? What do you want?" She stepped into the light, revealing her face, or what was left of it. Her eyes were empty sockets, and her mouth was a gaping maw of darkness. My scream echoed through the night as I realized I was face to face with a ghost. In a blind panic, I hit the gas pedal, not caring about the condition of the road. I could hear the ghostly wails behind me, but I didn't dare look back. I sped through the darkness, my only goal to escape that nightmarish place. Hours later, I finally found my way back to the main road, my car battered and my nerves shattered. The sun was just beginning to rise, and I pulled over at a gas station, gasping for breath. I knew no one would believe my story, but I didn't care. That night drive had been a descent into pure terror, a journey I would never forget, and one I hoped I would never have to make again. I've always had a fascination with the supernatural, and it was this fascination that led me to that terrifying night drive I'll never forget. It was a crisp autumn evening, and the leaves had taken on fiery hues as they littered the winding country roads. Little did I know that this drive would plunge me into the heart of a chilling real-life horror story. I had heard rumors about the old abandoned asylum that stood deep in the woods, far from civilization. It was a place whispered about in hushed tones, with a dark history of mistreatment and suffering. On a dare from my friends, I decided to visit the asylum, to explore the eerie place under the shroud of night. Armed with a flashlight and a camera, I set out, excitement and trepidation coursing through my veins. The drive to the asylum was unsettling. The narrow, winding roads twisted through the thick forest, and the moonlight cast eerie shadows on the overhanging branches. An oppressive sense of foreboding hung in the air as I navigated the unfamiliar terrain. But my curiosity and the allure of the unknown kept me going. Finally, I arrived at the entrance to the asylum grounds. The tall, wrought iron gate stood rusted and half ajar, as if beckoning me inside. The building itself was a colossal structure, its windows shattered and its walls covered in graffiti. Ivy had overtaken parts of the building, giving it a sinister, haunted appearance. As I ventured deeper into the asylum, the atmosphere grew increasingly unsettling. The air seemed colder, and the darkness pressed in around me, making my flashlight's beam feel feeble and inadequate. The sound of my own footsteps echoed eerily through the empty hallways. I reached a long corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly, and a chilling sensation washed over me as I heard faint whispers in the distance. I followed the whispers, the hair on the back of my neck standing on end. It was as if the very walls of the asylum held the tormented memories of its past. Turning a corner, my flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. And that's when I saw them. A group of shadowy figures, their faces obscured by darkness, huddled together in the middle of the hallway. My heart pounded as I realized I was not alone. In a panic, I stumbled backward, my flashlight falling to the ground. I fumbled for it, but when I looked up, the figures were gone. The hallway was empty, the whispers silenced. I was left standing there, trembling and disoriented. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that something malevolent lurked in the shadows. My instincts screamed at me to leave, but my curiosity kept me rooted in place. That's when I heard the footsteps. They were slow, deliberate, and growing louder with each passing second. Terrified, I aimed my flashlight down the corridor, and the beam illuminated a figure at the far end, a figure clad in tattered, blood-stained clothing. As the figure came into focus, I saw its face, or what remained of it. It was a ghastly visage with hollow, soulless eyes and decaying flesh. It was a patient, or perhaps a victim, of this forsaken place. Without a second thought, I turned and fled, my heart racing and my breath coming in frantic gasps. The night drive back felt like an eternity, and the asylum's horrors haunted my every thought. I never went back to that forsaken place, and I never shared my story with anyone. Some things are better left in the realm of the unknown, and that night drive had shown me the true meaning of terror.